Okay, this video that we're making today is from Unit 2, Module 2, Session 3. It's about solving multiplication problems for using multiplication arrays. So if we have a long line like this, we're going to do this in blue because it represents a decimeter, which is 10 centimeters. So one of these pieces is drawn with a long line like that. So this is where 10, and we'll label it so. And this is where 10. And then these little ones are just one each, 1 centimeter. So we have a total of 2. Since this since this side, which we call a dimension, is 12 long, we're multiplying 12 times the other dimension, which is 10 long. So we're doing the problem 12 times 10. These numbers are called the factors of the problem. The amount on the inside, since we have a 10 by 10 dimension here, we're actually using a mat to fill in how many squares would fit inside. We're going to do the amount on the inside in red and represent the equation 10 times 10 equals 100 square centimeters. Down here we're really picturing 2 strips because it is each 10 long, but it's not 10 down anymore. So you're really doing the equation 2 times 10, and you're picturing 2 strips here, each 10 long. So that would equal 20. And then the answer is those amounts put together. 100 plus 20 is 120. So what we did here is we did part of the product here and part of the product here and got the total product. The word product means the answer to a multiplication problem. So the product is 120. So again, I did the 10 times 10 part, which got us the 100 here. And then I did the 2 times 10 part, which got us 20 here. I put those amounts together and I get 120. When you're solving that, I want you to think about it in terms of the place values. So I'm going to write hundreds here, tens here, and ones here. And I'm going to ask myself, how many hundreds did I have? So like we said, we had one mat in here, which would be 100 squares. And that means we have 100. And then in this rectangle, we had 2 strips. So I'm imagining 2 tens in there. And then we didn't have any units, which stand for ones. So 100, 2 tens looks like 1, 2, 0. 1, 2, 0 was our final product. I want you to imagine I break these into strips. How many strips I have in this first mat, or 100 squares, is 1 10, 2 tens, 3 tens, 4 tens, 5 tens, and so on. And in here we have 10 tens. But we also had 2 tens in here. So 10 tens and 2 tens equals 12 tens. And then I still don't have any ones. So another way to say 120 is 12 tens. And then the last way is if we were to think of all of this broken into individual little tiny units, which each stands for 1. So if I had all of these broken up, I would obviously have 100 squares. So if I have 100 squares in here, and then I have 20 squares in here, I have 120 units, or I could say 120 ones. So this is just three different ways to say the same number. 120 can be 100 and 2 tens, or it could be 12 tens, or it could be 120 ones. I want you to notice, lastly, what is happening here when we have this equation. 12 times 10 ended up being 120. So let's look at that for a minute in our notes, and we're going to use a ratio table to represent this. So let's say I have how many groups on this side. So groups of 12, and I have the total amount on this side. Well, if I just have one group of 12, I obviously just have 12. But if I take 10 groups, now I have 10 groups. How many total pieces do I have? So I'm thinking 12 10 times, which we just showed up here. 12 10 times was 120. So this is what it would look like in a ratio table. Notice that when I had 1 12, it was 12. When I had 10 12s, it was 120. The digits look the same over here. So I have the 1 and the 2, and the 1 and the 2, and this time I added a 0 on the end. So the pattern ends up being that when you multiply by 10, you have a 0 on the end. I want you to try the second problem on your own at home, or wherever you're watching this video, and see if you can fill in the dimensions, which means the lengths of each side of the rectangle. So the top and then this side, how much would it be in blue? And then fill in the area, which means the partial products of each of the rectangles that you would make on the inside. And then pause this video and I will give you the answer. So if you got a square, which would be a mat because you're multiplying 10 times 10 to get 100, that would be correct. Thumbs up. If you got a smaller rectangle here because it's the length of 10 still, but on this side you don't have a 10, you only have a 6. So you're envisioning 6 strips, which you may have drawn, and you get a rectangle of 60 because 6 tens is 60. So you can even see how I broke up the problem here. 10 times 10 got us 100. 10 times 6 got us 60. This method is called partial products because you're getting part of the product here, part of it here, and then you're putting it together to get the answer of 160, which is the final product. The product is the answer to a multiplication problem.